Progress.
Hello, and hello, Ellen. Hello, Austin.
Hello, Paul.
No, I can't hear anybody as yet.
Can you hear me, Paul?
Can't hear you. It might be my problem. Let's see. I'm not on mute.
Hi, everybody. It's Ellen.
I hear Ellen.
Yep.
Hello, Ellen.
How are
Hi.
you?
Good. Okay, so I guess I'm working. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
I'm going to mute myself until you need me.
Okay. Let me test my share screen. And I guess this is what I want. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm glad you could put that up on the screen because I couldn't open my document.
Well,
Just
there you go.
marvelous. Yeah, just
But you
marvelous.
didn't up, there's nothing new, right?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Hey,
So
Austin.
I can do it if you want, whenever you're
Yeah.
ready.
So I think that what we'll be starting with is a discussion with the applicants for the pickleball court.
Right.
And then the second thing on that list was, honestly,
We were going to do the pond.
the golf course pond thing. So
Yeah, but
Tony needs to be part of that discussion.
who notified the Eric Green? Anybody?
I believe that Tony was going to do that because this is under the jurisdiction of the town.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, the golf course is owned by the town. The lease
Got it.
is through the town.
I see. Okay.
Um, But we will need to make sure that we have a quorum.
We already do.
Looks like we are fine.
I did.
Hi.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, folks.
Okay, we got Mark on, we've got Julie Tarmy. Where is Tony? One more minute or so before we open the meeting.
Okay, let me get my.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. So let me call this meeting to order. I'm Lynn Spencer. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee for the town of Nahant. Joining me tonight are members of the committee, and I will let each of them introduce themselves and their affiliations or their affiliations. So Paul, you want to go first?
Yep, Paul Spurn, member at large.
Nancy Cantelmo, Open Space and Recreation.
Okay. Ellen
Ellen Goldberg, member at large.
and Austin.
Austin Antrim, member at large.
Jimmy Dolan's here.
Yep,
And
Jimmy Dolan.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Okay.
I missed that.
I think he was trying to say he was member at large.
Yeah. That was,
I don't know if there's
that
a
was cool.
audio problem there, Jimmy.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a little bit of a glitch, but hopefully it'll come in clearer.
Perfect. Well, I'm here with you now. Nice to be with you.
Okay, very
Oh,
good,
good.
very
Thanks,
good.
Jimmy.
Glad to have you here. So last week we were actually doing a review of the 9 applications that we've received. And tonight we've invited Dave Aldrich, who is an applicant for the pickleball courts. We had also invited Tony Barletta and the folks representing the golf course to join us tonight. So I'm hoping we'll see something from Tony in a few minutes, but in the meantime, we'll invite Dave to discuss his grant application. We had raised several questions in the meeting last week concerning administration of, the pickleball program, as well as public procurement. And I did get an email from Tony on that subject, copied to Dave and several other people involved with that subcommittee. But I'll just sort of let Dave sort of talk about why he, what he's got in front of him and why this is viewed with such enthusiasm by so many people. So Dave, you're on.
Well, great, thank you. So I think to clarify, we really want to call this the Flash Road multi-use courts, because it is multi-use and it's a combination of tennis and pickleball, not pushing anyone out in one direction or another, but to kind of cohabitate on the courts. We, as you may or may not know, we had just over 250 residents of Nahant signed the petition last year for pickleball. So it was pretty clear that there's a need. One of the main reasons that we're trying to push this, or we are pushing it, is the one thing about with COVID, it kept everyone inside. And we were looking for anything we could do to create a recreational program that the young, middle-aged and older folks could participate. And when we started looking at all the enthusiasm and interest in pickleball, it was a push to move this forward. So we did a lot of research up and down the North Shore, how other programs were working and what worked well and what didn't. And so we put together this plan. And if you look at the diagram, starting with the courts, so the center dotted line is the current tennis court net. And what we would do is put 4 permanent lines, 4 permanent courts on the 2 existing tennis courts. And the tennis court the center line would kind of contain the balls, and then obviously the fence left and right would keep the balls in play. So if you look at the biggest problem at Flash Road is the wind. So with the natural vegetation on the east side and on the south side, bordering the golf course, the west side is fully exposed. And as we played pickleball on court 1 and 2 this past year, it was very challenging. As well as also, we were there one day when pickleball was being played and tennis, and everyone was having the same challenge with the wind.
Mhm.
So there is 2 sections of windscreen on the west side fence and on the north side fence. So it would, if that would be bordering where the current basketball court is, and obviously the open area to the west facing the school. And so that will help dramatically both the tennis and pickleball folks. And then if you look in each corner, there's a triangle, and those are sunscreens that will be mounted on the fence, on top of the fence, to give people a respite from the sun and the heat. So as the sun moves around the day, there'll always be a spot for players, both tennis and pickleball, to get some shade. Then if you look at on each side, there are 2 little stars, and those indicate 20-foot light poles to extend the season, starting early hopefully in April and continuing through, the late fall. And we were playing this year. In fact, we were playing today at the country club. So we want to extend the season as much as we possibly can and get people out as much as we possibly can. So the lights, if you want to take a look at the budget itself, so but line item by line item, I'll let you pull it up, Paul.
Let's see,
Thank you.
if I were really clever,
No, just keep rolling. Oh, there
all
you
right.
go.
There we
Is
go.
that it?
Yeah,
Yep,
great.
that's it. So
Yeah, see, don't cast aspersions, Lynn.
No, I mean, I'm
There's
impressed.
always room for improvement here.
No, I was only giving you encouragement. Don't worry.
Okay, got it.
so so the first line item is obviously the painted lines, and there's the issue with the lines is it has to be above 50 degrees. So we've put a request in to the selectmen to hopefully get the lines painted in advance of the town meeting, but it's clearly up to the selectmen. The windscreens, there are 2 sections.
I'm sorry, you're saying that when the lines are painted, it has to be over 50 degrees.
That is correct, sir. So that
Got it.
would be sometime around, I looked at historicals over the last 10 years, and that takes us about to the 3rd week of April for painting.
Good.
And then there's the windscreens. We put a line item in for the labor to install and remove them this year. The light poles with the LED lights.
I'm sorry, Dave, clarify that for me.
Yep.
You're saying that this is just 1 year's worth?
No. The line item below it is 1 year's worth. The
I see,
windscreens are
okay.
2,300, and we put
That's the
a number in.
investment.
Yeah, $600 but that could change. It could drop, and we could adjust it for 2024.
Or maybe the town public works could figure out how to do it
Possibly.
and we wouldn't be charged extra.
Right. Well, we just put the line items in
all right.
because someone has to do it.
Right. Okay.
The next is the light poles and the hardware, and then the sunscreens, and then again, an installation charge for the sunscreens. The light poles. So the basis for the lights. So in order for us not to disturb any of the wetlands, we looked at the precast bases that the town used for the wharf. And so the architectural lights sit on precast concrete bases. And next slide item is for the delivery. The next items are the materials, the labor, the lift truck and operator, and then the trenching, bringing topsoil in, crushed stone, grade it and seed it once all the work is done for the lighting, which would be the trenching for the conduit. We met with I went to see the chief, and last year we worked out an agreement that people coming to play pickleball from Lynn or people that don't have a sticker, they would have spots over behind the fire station. So they would have to put a sign in on their dashboard so they wouldn't get a ticket or towed. So we thought it would be great to have signs, 6 signs over in the area behind the fire station that just is reserved for multi-use parking. So people, whether they're playing tennis or pickle, they can park there without getting a ticket. The reservation system is critical to the management and the operations of this system. And we went around, again, I play at the middle school in Marblehead, and we've been using the reservation system there for the last couple of years, and it works perfectly. I had a conversation with the head of recreation in Marblehead, and I basically said, what have you heard from the citizens of Marblehead? And she said, Dave, no news is good news, and we haven't had one complaint since we started the reservation system. So in the reservation system, which is going to be approved by the selectmen, is for instance, we'll block out time for the Council on Aging and seniors from 10 to 11 every day. These are all hypothetical times. And then we have, we'll block out times for tennis. So tennis players, they can reserve the court anytime, but in a block that they can always know that they can get on a court. So everyone kind of plays well in the sandbox. And we'll also have time for Nahant for the pickleball league and just different blocking times. I'm happy to report that I have 4 volunteers to create a junior pickleball program for lessons and game. So I'm pretty excited about that. So the kids will have times blocked out. So it's the way that the reservation system works is that somebody goes online on their phone, and everybody's got a phone, or at home on a computer, and they block out the time to play. And if they're in 90-minute blocks, and they would go in, and as they approach, if they go into the gate, there'll be a sign with the rules, and also a sign that what time, let's say court 2 is, you started playing. And one of the things in Marblehead is we don't really know, like if you show up and someone's on a court, we don't really know what time they're getting off. This way, someone who's going to play can go over, look at the sign, and know that at 10:15, the court will be open and they can get on. So we think that starting out with a good system that is clearly manageable, that keeps everyone happy, blocks out time so no one's left out, and it's comfortable for everyone, we think it's perfect. And then obviously we need a rules sign, like every court has, the do's and the don'ts, and what's appropriate. And but also, if someone, for instance, if someone on the sign, it'll say, if you are a tennis player, I mean, if you're a pickleball player and you have to say the tennis time is blocked out from 4 to 6 every day. And as a pickleball player, you go on and no one's down at the courts. You can play until a tennis player arrives, and that pickleball player will then give way to the tennis people. So it kind of covers pretty much everything. So it's a management tool, it's an operational tool, and quite frankly, it's keep the peace tool. So we think that we've covered everything. We think we've created a really cool place that will accommodate everybody. And we also think it's going to be kind of a fun social place for people to gather. And when I met with the woman from the Council on Aging, because the Council on Aging requested pickleball back during Linda.
Check.
Who?
Oh,
No.
never mind.
Yeah, the one who lives, my neighbor. I forget her name.
Peterson.
Thank
Yeah.
you. She
Yeah.
she brought it up with Sheila, who's on the board of Council on Aging, the treasurer. So she was excited. And I think she said, Dave, there's a lot of seniors that don't come here that would love to do this, and knowing that they could play at their own time is very attractive. So I think between the tennis times and the youth times and the pickleball league times and open play, I just think it's going to be terrific. And then we put in a line item for contingency just in case we run into, some problems with the lighting or anything that's come up for creating this multi-use court system. So that's kind of it.
Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for really going through that. I think that it's also useful to look at the funds that are being contributed by the group that is gathered around this. So you want to just talk about that a little bit, Dave? A nice incentive.
Sure. So we raise money. We have we currently have $6,600 in the bank over at the bank at the head of the causeway. We would like our funds, if possible. Again, this is a selectman's decision, that we would like to use our funds in April to line the courts, buy the 2 new rolling nets, and put up the windscreens. And then we can get, if we wait until the town meeting, we're going to lose kind of a month of activity. But again, this is up to the selectmen. We've put our request in, and we're going to abide by their decision. We're not going to lobby for it one way or the other. But we have, and to be honest, we shut off our fundraising outreach last year when it was clear that the town was not going to put in the 4 permanent courts and take out one of the tennis courts, because that's what we were pushing for. So I think we're in a position to raise more money down the road to maintain this wonderful location. That's kind of it about funding.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for your initiative and the clarity of your presentation. Committee members, questions, comments? Anyone?
This is Ellen. I have a few questions just for clarity's sake, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing this.
Okay. How are those light poles controlled? How is the lighting system controlled? So I assume it's connected via, it goes underground and connects to the grid.
Yeah.
And somewhere there's a control. So how is it controlled? Who controls it? Is it on a timer? Who's got access? How does that work?
Sure, of course. Thanks for asking. So it'll be similar to the country club, the paddleball courts and the tennis courts. There'll be a timer and a photo cell. So there'll be a manual switch on And then, but there's also a cutoff time at 10 o'clock, just like the paddleball courts. So no one can go down at 1 a.m. and flip the switch. And if the photo cell doesn't activate, they can't turn it on. So
Is there a difference? Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry?
keep going. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. That's what we designed. That's what we were proposing.
So is there a difference in quality between the light that you're proposing, the lights that are there, and something that might end up being disruptive to any nearby residents?
No, we don't think so, because these lights are lower than the current lights that are there that are on the basketball court, which don't illuminate the multi-use courts. And these two, the lights are designed, they kind of like, they have a little, probably should have had a photograph of it, but there are 2 lights per pole. They're only 20 feet, which is lower than the basketball courts. And they're further away from the residents. I mean, it's further away, so less, I don't think it's going to be disruptive anyway, but it's further away, and they shine directly down, right? So they're illuminating.
Okay, that was another question, because sometimes the lights over at the country club can be disruptive and they don't shine down. They shine right into the sky.
Yeah, no, these are designed specifically for this purpose.
Okay. Lynn, can I ask a couple more questions?
Oh, please. These are good questions.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
follow-up question on the topic that Ellen's already broached? Is there a solar operated light which would work rather than a grid operated light?
Are you asking me?
Dave, did you hear the question?
I did. We
Okay.
did not pursue solar lighting for the courts.
Because a self-contained solar light could be put up by anybody. You wouldn't need an electrician to put it up. Now, I don't know how much more expensive they are. We're really only talking about 2 hours worth of lighting a day. That's not a lot to get out of a solar installation.
But the issue
I
is,
think you ought to look into it.
if the I will just respond just from, because I have solar panels on my house. If it's not sunny and people still want to play, you know, or if you won't get, unless there's a solar battery system, you won't have what they're looking for, I don't think.
Right. No, it would be a solar fed battery.
It has to be a battery. Yes, it would have to be a battery system for storage.
Yep.
Well, Paul, for what it's worth, none of the public courts have solar panels or solar lights in any of the municipal courts on the North Shore.
Okay.
So that might be an indicator.
So you can be a groundbreaker, Dave.
Oh yeah, we're trailblazers.
Yeah, I haven't seen solar powered lights that are similar to these, which are a light standard. You know, I think it's an interesting point to raise, and maybe we should do a little bit of poking around to see if that, because I do share the concern that while the lights will be on a precast base, there's trenching to get the power to them. So, which goes a little bit back to the budget assumptions, but yeah, sorry, Dave,
Right.
go ahead.
And remember, you know, and we did look, you know, if you go over where the trenching will be done it does not go outside of the footprint. Like it stays inside of the footprint that's currently along the fence. So it does not disrupt any vegetation. It doesn't impede the wetlands. So we were very careful about that when we did the analysis. So I don't think that it's going to be very disruptive. I mean, I can't say that for 100%, but I can tell you that we won't be in violations of any conservation work because we're inside the current, where those straw type containment booms are. will be inside of that. So we're very
Okay.
careful about that when we met with the proposed contractors.
So that raises a point about procurement, but before I go into that, I'd like to hear other questions that committee members might have for Dave. Ellen,
Yes, thank you. Who do you anticipate would be making decisions about the schedule and the time blocks? And yeah, that's question number one. And there's a little bit of a follow-up to that about access.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're proposing the schedule and the management, but the selectmen are the ones that will approve that our recommendations. What we've done is we've taken everything that's gone right in every municipal facility, Salem, Marblehead, up and down in Peabody, to avoid problems, because when you start off with a good system and with good management, it's a heck of a lot easier than rewriting things down the road when things might get out of hand. So that's up to the selectmen. It's got nothing to, everything that we do, like we're recommending the painting of the pickleball lines and the windscreens and the new rolling nets, which we're paying for. I mean, we have the funds to do that. So it's not out of CPC money per se in the beginning. So these are all recommendations, what we think is in the best interest of the vast majority of people in the town to use the facilities, to feel comfortable there, to have a welcoming environment, and have it so if it's done right, there's no conflicts. I mean, there'll be some people that might be upset. I don't know for that, for sure. But if we do everything in our power to create a system that's pretty much seamless, that gets the recommendation of other recreation departments on the North Shore, then I think we've done a very good job. And it can always be tweaked. But the one thing that the committee was very careful about was not creating pickleball courts, but creating, enhancing, and utilizing the current footprint to maximize the use and have everyone getting along as best as possible. And there'll be times that pickleball people will want to get on a tennis court and they're going to be tennis players, but that's life. And that happens every single day. I mean, I can only tell you how I see it working in Marblehead. And and by the way, this is a better system than Marblehead system, because if in Marblehead, if I reserve a court at 10 o'clock and at 9:30 I have a sick child, I can't cancel that court. I have to send an email to the rec department in Marblehead, and then they have to take it offline. This system, as soon as you reserve a court, like say you reserve a pickleball court, it immediately takes one of the tennis courts offline, and then the next reservation that comes in will be a pickleball, another pickleball game going on the same court. So it's it's actually a pretty cool system, and it works well.
So,
very inexpensive.
I have two follow-up questions.
Sure.
I hope I don't monopolize this. Who do you anticipate will have access to the reservation system as a user? Would you anticipate this being Nahant residents only, or people from other towns as well?
So Nahant only, right? They can reserve, and in the rules that we've drafted is that a Nahant person cannot reserve a court and not be on that court with an out-of-town person. Now, we absolutely encourage out of town play. I mean, every single day I play in Lynn, not every day, but I play with a gang in Lynn. And of the 26 regular players, 12 are from town here. So these are people that we play with all the time. So they're going to be coming over and playing with us. So I think
But
that
Nahanters, you would say Nahanters have reservation system access, not
That's
not
correct.
people from out of the tent. Okay.
that's correct.
And then,
Yep.
and then in terms of I am focused on this, the reservation system, but
Sure.
do you foresee ways of forestalling things like somebody just blocking up a bunch of them way ahead of time? Like when I have to reserve laps swimming at the JCC, for example, you know, or spinning, some things only open a day before so that you don't have people going on 2 weeks before and just blocking out all these times way ahead of time. Is there some kind of fail safe for that in the system? Do you know?
Yeah. And that's what happens
Okay,
in
good.
Marblehead. You know, if
Yeah.
you, I don't have to tell you, they got, you know, there's people try to beat the system. And what they do is
Right.
they have, you say, if you and I are playing on a team, they sit there and they wait until the exact second you can reserve a court, you know, a week out, and then you reserve, and then I reserve, and then it blocks somebody else out. So that won't
Yeah.
happen.
Okay. And then 2 more questions, if I might.
Sure.
One is, you mentioned a group of people, you being willing to raffle up lessons for children.
Yeah.
Is there any capacity to raffle up lessons for grown-ups?
Oh, yeah. No, this is, I just focused on youth programming. So we
Yeah.
have a cross section. So the answer is yes, there are 2 women and a couple of guys that can give lessons to group lessons and individual lessons. They have to
Okay.
register with the town, just like someone who was teaching tennis. So the answer is yes. And I can also tell you that in the month of January, there was group lessons for beginners at the Y in Lynn. And there were lots of Nahant people there taking lessons.
Got it.
So the answer is yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the lessons in a minute? Is that okay, Ellen, just to jump in here?
Yes,
So
please.
how, so would this be through, like in other towns, the rec department manages this, and that's not, you know, we don't have a rec department that sort of works that way in our town. It's just not as big as the other towns surrounding here. But how would it work with the kids? Who would they sign up with? And like you said, how are these people sort of vetted to do this? And does town insurance cover it if there's a problem? I mean, how is this going to work with especially the children?
So I thought that, you know, I would go and first I'd start with the principal at school, talk to him because there was some youth programming in the fall that he was interested in. And then, you know, I would talk to whoever's, you know, in the town that is responsible for things like this. We have the people that want to help. So how it works and the logistics behind it, I don't think it's super hard to figure out. You know, we'll block time out, we'll get them to sign up, and there won't be a charge for it because we're going to volunteer our time. So I don't know how that works with I mean, whether or not the town wants to have everyone Corey checked. I don't know. That's something that the town attorney would have to come up with. I mean, I have a Corey check, so that's not a big issue. But it's a lot. I guess it has to do with what the parameters are with the town. What I'm saying is that we're willing to create a youth program so the kids can start playing pickleball, which, by the way, pickleball is now growing in popularity in elementary school, middle school, and high school. sports programs, which was unheard of a couple of years ago. So I think, I think there's enough creativity within our group that we can figure it all out. Yeah, so I guess that's as much as I can answer, Nancy.
Okay, that's cool. We just have to work with, like you're saying, the situation and the laws and the
Right.
the department and the town and all that.
Right.
Nancy, this is Tony.
Yeah.
The Town Administrator Act puts the responsibility of all rental and usage of town property under the town administrator's responsibility. And so typically that application process of recreational permits goes through my office.
Thanks, Tony. I'm glad you're here. I just want to bring forward a couple of comments that I see in the chat relative to this whole thing of reservations and so on. One is, what's to avoid a tennis or pickleball player from heading to the beach after playing? And secondly, how will the reservation know if it's a resident versus non-resident?
What was the first thing about going to the beach?
The first one is you finish playing pickleball, you're parked over at the behind the fire station or whatever, you're an out of towner as a guest, and you get to go to the beach afterwards. So
Yeah, well, they put a time on the dashboard.
Perfect.
Pickleball from 10 to 11:30.
Perfect.
That's
Great answer.
what we did last year. It seemed to work. I mean, there are enough people that, the people that park at the country club and go to the beach, and the people that park by the library and go to 40 steps. I mean, this is a much better way to control it than this open parking violations around town.
I think that I hear you. And how will the reservation know if it's a Nahant resident versus a non-resident?
Well, that's one thing I have to figure out on how to, with some sort of a code.
Okay.
But it can be done with a code.
Good. Well, okay, that's part of the sort of management and administration to work out.
Yep.
Committee members, other questions or comments?
So
These
I
are
have
some good
I have a
ones.
question about these rolling nets.
Yes, ma'am.
So where do they go when they're rolled off? Number one, and number two, how do they stay stationary? So if someone like crashes into them, that they just don't go like rolling down into the courts. How does that all work? And the storage of them, how does it stay out of the tennis player's way?
Sure. Good question. So the pickleball committee bought 2 rolling nets last summer, which lived on the courts. They were locked against the fence last year, and we unlocked them. They have very heavy duty casters. We roll them into place. We lock them in. It's when you're moving a table that has a roller, and you push it down and it locks the roller.
Okay.
Those are there. They were not at all intrusive to the tennis folks. Everybody loved them. That we're going to buy 2 more of them. So 2 will be on one side and 2 will be on the other side. And they're nice, and they're not flimsy. So we wanted nice ones because we knew it was a public arena, and sometimes folks aren't really that careful. And but we managed it well. People locked them up after they played, so people couldn't move them around and mess them up, and worked out well.
And it's obviously the responsibility of the pickleball players to put them away if a tennis person is coming next.
That is correct. That is correct. If they're playing, Nancy, and they finish playing, and there isn't a tennis player or another pickleball player, they have to move it literally takes about a minute to roll them against the fence and secure them. So that way, if a tennis player shows up and wants to play tennis, they're not looking at 4 nets and like, well, why do we have to move these nets? So it's the responsibility of each of the courts, the pickleball courts, to take the nets and put them back in place. And I found those nets when I was on Chappaquiddick. I saw them in use and I was like, this is the perfect situation. And a lot of municipalities don't have them. The ones that have permanent courts, they have, permanent nets, but the ones that have this flimsy nets, they're dangerous. They don't hold up well. And you're always configuring and calibrating the height. These are nice. These are very nice and are easily managed by anyone who's playing any sport.
Thanks, Dave.
Sure thing.
So we have had 45 minutes on pickleball, but it's not actually pickleball. I actually want to follow Dave's lead and say this is about the Flash Road multi-use courts, and we should really be thinking about it that way. So it does raise the question about sensitivity to the tennis players and what's it going to mean to tennis players with permanent lines on the court. Has that been polled or assessed in any meaningful way, Dave?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, because I read a study about it, and the conversion of tennis courts, adding on pickleball courts, is happening all over the country. And I read a whole blog about it, and the one complaint that the tennis players had was using tape and not paint, because when the tennis ball hits the tape, it makes a funny bounce. People said when they started playing, there's a different color line. So tennis courts are white. Ours will be a blue. We think that's probably the best, but we haven't really nailed that down yet. But most tennis players adjust very quickly. It's not an issue because the tennis lines are white. I did read one, in the spirit of full disclosure, of one guy who was playing in a tournament who went ballistic because he couldn't, because of the pickleball lines. But that was a very, very, very tiny percentage. But I think we're not Flushing, Queens. We're the multi-use tennis courts in town. And unless there's going to be big New England tournaments, I think everybody's going to be fine. That's my opinion. And we play on tennis courts with pickleball, and it's never a problem at all.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions from the committee?
I just
Yes,
have
Lynn.
one detail, Dave. What's the lighting output of the lights you plan to put up? How many lumens?
300 watts per light, I think. I think that's right.
Yeah, lumens is easier to translate from one source to another.
I worked out with the engineer with the lighting company, and we both, he strongly, I said, should we get 500 watts? And he said, Dave, if this was the San Diego public courts and there were 10 pickleball courts, I would absolutely tell you to boost it up to 500. He said, you're going to be absolutely fine with these lights, with the amount of play and the time that's available to play, because you have a limited window, because we shut down at 10.
Right.
And versus, 12 after 12 on the West Coast because of the weather and all that.
Right. Dave, could you do me a favor, just ask him what that translates into in lumens?
Yeah, I could, and I might be able to put that in a chat once I hang up, but
Okay. Great.
I will.
Thanks.
Yep. But I'm sorry.
So there are other questions?
Yes, I have a couple, Lynn. This is
Thank
Austin.
you. Thank you, Austin. Yeah.
Dave, you had mentioned that the rolling nets you were using had been locked. If this project gets funded, will the 4 rolling nets be unlocked and available for all of the public?
Yeah, yep, yep,
Okay.
yep. I mean,
And
I don't know how else we can do it, Austin. I mean, we did it last year to protect the integrity of the nets, but I think we want to make it as easy as possible. And, you know, if some kids want to go and play pickleball, you know, I want to be able to, you know, it's a good problem to have. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I hope that the town puts up some surveillance cameras like we have at the wharf to deter any problems, but no, we're not going to lock them up. And if we need, we also put a line item in for some replacement nets. So in the event that something happens, we can just put just the net up, not the frame, going forward.
thank you. My other question is about the windscreens.
Yep.
Sort of what size are they and how long will they be up? And can you see through them?
Well, to the extent they're not solid, if that's what you're asking, right? Because there has to be some give from the wind. They're 12 feet high, 10 or 12 feet high. They go from the corner by the far end of the second gate by the golf course, and they run all the way to the corner by the basketball court, and then they run from that corner all the way along Flash Road towards where Pam Motley used to live. So it's all contained in that, you know, the wind is contained.
So what do they consist of? I see them, you know, in plan, but what are they made of?
Well, they're made of a polyester fabric to, you know, I don't know exactly what the makeup is. I never really, you know, I've had windscreens, I've put windscreens up forever, but I don't know what the actual, it's a fabric. It's a, you know, it's a synthetic fabric. But back to Austin's question, they'll go up in the spring and they'll come down in the late fall, because we're not going to subject the fence, the integrity of the fence or the windscreens to the prevailing winds out of the northwest throughout the winter time. So no, they'll be down, rolled and stored, just like we did the rolling nets this year.
Are
Thank
they
you.
translucent? Can you see into them or shadows in them, or if they're
Yeah.
pieces?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not like a light block. It's a windscreen, you
Okay.
know, so the air comes through it, you know, because if it didn't, it would pull down the fence. But I can do it. You know, I wasn't prepared for the question, so I apologize. It didn't occur to me. But I can easily get that information, and I'll send you the cut sheet on that.
Yeah, some
would be
photographs would be
that
great.
would be great. That
Sure,
would be very
of
good.
course. Absolutely. Yep.
Austin, other questions?
No, that's all. Thank you, Dave.
Sure
Okay.
thing.
Well, if there are no further questions, I'd like to go to the procurement side of this, because you'll remember at our last meeting, we raised the fact that this is it's a town-owned property. So I've asked Tony to comment on what that means in terms of procurement of various parts of this project. And I appreciate, Tony, that you're on this call. I was looking at your email, but instead of reading your email, why don't you actually tell us how this falls in terms of town management and public procurement?
Well, I haven't. So a first step is really to kind of double check the estimated cost of the project.
Tony, your audio isn't very good. I don't know if it's my ears
I might
or
be
your
further.
microphone.
Let me get a little closer to the microphone.
Yeah, that's good.
The first part
Much
is
better.
to estimate the cost of the project, which the group proposing this, submitting this application has put forward some numbers. that I still need to double check. And that total cost of the project will then dictate the procurement requirements of any of the individual items or the total project in and of itself. Procurement has to be done by the town of Nahant. The management of the contract has to be done by the town of Nahant. If it's between for public works construction contracts with labor, if it falls under that category versus like a supply or service, then anything between, anything under $10,000 is essentially sound business practices, pretty fairly simple to use. You really aren't allowed to divide the project up to avoid certain threshold and requirements though. 10,000 to 50,000, we're required to put a written scope of work statement to solicit written responses from no fewer than 3 persons. I'm reading this from the chart, by the way. We post a notice at least 2 weeks before the responses are due on our website, on Combis, in the central register, and in conspicuous place near our office. OSHA trainings required. A 50% payment bond if the contract is more than 25,000 is required. Prevailing wage is always required no matter what. And OSD or blanket contract would be required. So it really comes down to where the estimated project cost ends up being, which is going to determine. I don't think this is going to go over 50,000, so I'm not really worried about the next level of procurement requirements.
Yeah, as I look at the budget, Tony, and this is a world I live in too, I think that what we're talking about, if the lines are done by the group, we'll just call it the group, if they do the lines, they do this to the as they were suggesting, they were lining the court and doing the windscreens and the rolling nets, that takes some of this budget out. To me, the big item is the electrical. So it's the light poles, it's the electrical materials, it's the labor, and it's the lift truck and so on. And that's where I think you're rising on $20,000 for that as I look at the subtotal at this budget.
Well, there's, still some more conversation to go with Dave on how you would work this out. Certainly we would try to find a way that would, produce the best option, but it gets a little awkward when, if the private fundraising was used to purchase nets and then the nets were donated to the town, that certainly fits within what you were just talking about. Having private fundraising pursue, the painting doesn't really fit in the same way. That really is a job that needs to be done by the town and contracted with the town. So
Okay.
I wouldn't use the fundraising funds for that purpose unless they were donated to the town. I would use CPC dollars for that purpose if it was approved. So, but yeah, you're right. The largest cost is definitely going to be the lighting.
So what I would want to do is, as we look at this, is to make sure that there's adequate funding for this in their application. I mean, I think Dave was probably, working with, an engineer or an electrician to come up with these costs. And we would want to make sure that there's enough money to actually do it according to the rules of Chapter 149 and prevailing rates, for instance.
Right.
So Dave, could I just ask you, I don't mean to put you on the spot for this, but could you
Sure.
just tell us you reached out to an electrician and a light, and just tell us a little bit about how those where you got those prices.
Sure, thanks. For instance, you want to know about the physical lights or everything?
Everything. See, it
Okay.
really has to be thought of as a package together.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I just did my research. I called, several, properties that had put in lighting.
Mhm.
And then I got the name of a few of the lighting companies. And I found one that I was most comfortable with, that was most knowledgeable, that asked me all the right questions and locked in their quote from last fall through the spring, which I thought was pretty cool, good, nice of them. And I looked at locations that had done this. That's how I got the lighting.
Mhm.
I went to a local electrical contractor who's done several jobs here in town, who's knowledgeable of the electric codes and wages and everything related to insurance, and who has a good relationship with the DPW and was terrific to work with. And then regarding the contractor for the site work, again, a local contractor, extremely knowledgeable with the DPW and the laws and the rules of town and the sensitivity of working here in town. So that's how I got that's how I made that decision. And
Okay.
again, these are proposed contractors. I was very clear, I can't award the contract. They both know that nothing can be done regarding the electrical until after the town meeting. They understood that. They committed to starting the work the day after the town meeting, which would be 1.5 days of pre-site work, and then 4 days of electrical work, and then the finishing of the site work. So I was pretty comfortable across the board with their numbers. And that's kind of how I did it.
Mhm.
And so I was very thoughtful and I spent a lot of time on all of this,
Yeah.
doing it the right way, for the right reasons, and the sole purpose of creating the most enjoyable multi-use court program on the North Shore. And I think we have a great opportunity to do that. And I think that, and regarding what Tony mentioned, we'll hand over the money for the lines and the windscreens and the rolling nets to the town tomorrow. We have no authorship of that money. We will post on our not only on the site that was part of the petition, but also the Nahant pickleball Facebook posts. We'll tell them we're gonna fully transparent with everything we've done with their money. Some of the major donors of that $6,500 I've already met with. I showed them this particular configuration. They loved what they saw. They were disappointed about what happened before, but that's water over the dam, and they're really quite impressed with what we've created in this situation. And then the one comment was that, we've covered everything as much as you possibly can for everybody in town. So Though that's how I made my decisions.
Are
Great.
those,
Thank you.
are those, 4 new lamp poles and LED lights? Are those the, like those star-shaped
Yes.
icons on the map?
Yes,
And is on the top side of this map, that's like up against the wooded area?
it's inside the footprint of where you've did the work for the tennis courts. It's inside of the straw barriers, yes.
Okay, so, like that's, so if, running electrical to those locations, there may need to be some flexibility, right? Because if that's underground conduit, getting to that location, needing a Concom permit likely, or some sort of cooperation with them, those are elements that are going to alter the schedule, alter the price. So those are things that, would be ironed out after the fact, after, town meeting approves the funding.
Sure, I mean, if you told us to go,
And
you know, on the top of the,
is your
if you told us to
proposal,
go, I'm sorry,
where your lines, the price you got for line painting, would those lines be painted where the current tape is
Yes.
exactly?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And, I just wanted to say regarding our flexibility, we'll do anything to make this work. And if the lights take some time, I'm sorry? No, I thought someone, I said, if lights take some time, it is what it is. But we just want to get rolling. That's really what's our main focus.
Right, priority, I think, would be on the paint. and the
Yeah, the paint and the windscreens, that's the priority number one.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Lynn,
Ellen,
I
another
have one
question?
more. Yeah, just one final question from me. I mean, I don't know who we is, actually. Who is the group behind this?
I'm sorry?
Who's
your-
the group behind, who's the group? I don't know who the group is. You keep saying
So-
we and the committee. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, so it's Cora Long, Sandy Burton, and Deb Baldwin. That's been our committee from day one. And then I think we have like 85 Facebook partners too.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Sure.
So I think we've covered a lot of information tonight, and we really appreciate the attention to detail that you've given to this, Dave, along with your group. I'm going to actually suggest that the committee sort of take this under advisement. I think we do have a couple of things that do need to be clarified in terms of the budget and and quite honestly, the town procurement and administration of this. So Tony, I think if you have a copy of this application, I can actually identify the things that I've actually subtotaled in that electrical related work. And I think what we just really want to do is to make sure that if we're funding this, that we actually provide enough money to do the job right.
Exactly.
So-
And Dave already sent me some information about the contractors that he spoke with, and some
That's great.
contact info that I have some follow-up to do on my end.
That's great. Thank you.
And,
Okay,
and just in closing, before I hang up, so I'm sending you the cut sheets for the lighting,
yep,
and I'm sending you the information on the windscreens.
please.
Is there any other additional information you want from me?
I'd love the sunscreen information, cut sheets as well.
Sure,
I think
okay.
I think that would be good.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you all for your time. I think it's great and everyone's excited. So onward we go.
Okay, very good.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dave.
Dave.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very,
folks.
very much.
Thanks for
Thank
all
you.
your work.
Yep.
Really wonderful efforts here.
Thank you.
Okay. Tony, have we got you for a minute or several minutes more?
Yes.
Okay. I think last time we talked about getting further information about the two projects related to the golf course.
Mhm.
And I wondered if you have anything to share with us about that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was,
The short answer, I guess, is Zach, myself, Eric Green from the golf committee sat down and discussed their application and what they're looking to do, and talked about other projects and plans related to the golf course and studies, and determined that it would be best for the golf committee to actually withdraw their application because it was a little bit ahead of itself and other items that are going on. And Eric brought that back to the golf committee on Monday night, and they're all okay and on board with withdrawing their application for it was the engineering study related to
with the pond
the
and the
pond.
wells. Yeah.
Yeah, the wells. So it's an item that we're interested in, and it certainly piqued our interest, and there's definitely some significant long-term savings if the town were to pursue that. But knowing the committee and having gone through your process for a few years now, I think that their application was a little bit ahead of itself, and the town is going to work with the committee on pursuing some of that study work. And should it present itself as a feasible, valuable project, and construction of which, could be eligible for CPC applications, we'll come back, with them to you all for that funding. But for now, they're going to withdraw their application.
Okay. Tony, can you clarify that for me? So they are withdrawing it completely. They are not transforming it from a build proposal to a study proposal. Is that right?
Correct.
There's no proposal.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Do be aware that we will fund studies. We kind of like that process where we first do a feasibility or a conditions assessment, and that leads to, planned prioritized recommendations. If, however, you have other funding sources to enable that to take place, or another kind of approach, that's fine. It really does, in my mind, when we see these applications, especially on town-owned property, whether it's on a lease basis or not, it really needs to be thoroughly vetted and understood by you, Tony, and Zach before they come to us.
Their application and what they want to do, which is certainly valuable for the town and for the golf course, is to study the potential of installing a well for the purposes of irrigation. And if that project could also produce like a pond that could be utilized in a recreational way, all the better. But I don't know if that really falls within a CPC eligible project, where it's really the core of the study is to understand the feasibility of irrigation for a recreational space. So there is some connection there, but it's not completely solid. And we really don't know what the cost of that survey, feasibility study and or survey would be at this point. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, it's a valuable project. We're gonna work with them, and you know, we may be in front of you guys in the future, but I think it's just a little ahead of its time to be requesting, you know, $75,000 from your committee at this time.
We completely understand. So let's go on to the second, unless there's any further comment from committee members, let's go on to the second application that we received related to the golf course.
So we discussed this with him as well. The
Yeah.
golf committee is certainly in favor of this application. You know, there's been, Nancy could probably speak to some of this. We established a tree task force in the town of Nahant, and the Kelly Greens and Flash Road Park, actually, that entire area has seen many long-term older trees die and be removed. A lot of old willow trees, a lot of trees that provide a significant benefit to the recreational space. And I listed a lot of those benefits there on the application for you. We would work, if this project got funded, you know, a portion of this funding would go towards planting mature trees with at least a 2.5 inch caliper. I misspelled that, I'm sorry, a caliper trunk. Those trees tend to be around 10 plus feet tall. And they've installed by asking Zach what his experience has been working with our current contractors. They're about $1,000 each. Really, you know, if we're trying to provide instant benefits and, you know, protection from the sport of golf, you know, the more mature trees that we can plant, the better than, you know, some of the smaller trees that you would plant and root for them to grow or you know, commit to where they're planted. The other part of it is there's the existing Bear Pond currently has a pedestrian bridge from the 9th hole to the 1st hole. It's been there for I don't know how long. And what we would like to do is restore or replace that bridge and bring that that element back to the space. And then lastly, I talked a little bit about this. We've performed some stormwater studies, and one of the items recommended improvements is to restore the open ditch system, especially across the 6th and 5th fairway. They used to be open systems and they were converted to underground pipe and covered up with earth, but that pipe is undersized. It actually creates a bottleneck scenario, slowing down the flow of stormwater. But if we were to restore those, walkers and golf carts, you know, people using the golf course would need a way to cross over them. So the other element of this project would be to be able to purchase small bridges to use to cross over the ditch system. And that would come later after the town pursued its stormwater improvements.
Okay. So Tony, well, actually, Paul, could you scroll forward
Yeah, what do you want to see?
magically and beautifully the way you do it?
What do you want to see?
The budget.
Oh, budget, all right.
The budget.
Budget.
The
see.
smooth progress. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. Yeah. So Tony, I was a little confused by this because I saw $35,000 for his professional services.
So I was trying to show how we would utilize, like, break down the total funding. So 15,000 of the 50 would go towards the installation of mature trees. The remaining amount would go towards the construction and installment of the bridges. So that's why I put the 35 under professional services. Because
Okay.
we would likely hire a contractor to build those and install them.
So you would also have Concom permitting and all that kind of fun stuff
Of
to do with
course.
this? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They would be, especially that, that stormwater system upgrade would be, they'd be heavily involved in that.
Okay.
The existing bridge over Bear Pond, I would assume as long as we're not changing the footprint of the existing bridge, Concom would be okay with replacing it in kind.
Thank
And
you,
then, of
Tony.
course, I think they would be involved in the tree planting too. So
Yeah.
the idea would be to engage the golf course manager, the golf committee, the tree task force, and the Concom to determine types of trees and location.
Mhm.
And then the DPW would execute that based on that, consensus.
Great, thank you. Committee members, comments, questions to Tony?
Oh, can I just jump in on the tree thing, since just to follow up on what Tony said, I was just concerned that, this is a wet area, and so you just can't plunk any tree down, like, as you know, and mostly those trees that went away were willow trees that, thrive in that wet area. So I would, very much like to involve the tree task force, but also, Mark Carboni, who has a lot more experience than anybody about what trees should go in what area and how old the trees should be and stuff like that. It might be that smaller trees might be a little better just because they would get situated, in that kind of wet stuff. But I mean, I think he would be a good resource that we have to, help with that. The second question I had is also about water. A couple of years ago, there was someone wanted to do a study sort of the hydrology of that whole area, and you had some other kind of thing going on, and then the two of you had to get together to try to figure out what happened, and I think that never went forward. But I was just wondering, is a study of that area feasible? It's a really complicated system that's been tampered with so much over the years. I mean, would it benefit from somebody saying, which way does the water go, or what's the right thing to do? I don't know a lot about it, but I'm just asking if a study of how the water goes
We
be
completed that.
beneficial. Okay.
We completed that study. We used a company called Dubois and King and a stormwater.
Say,
professional.
Tony, I can't understand you.
We completed a study. It was
Yeah.
funded by town meeting. And it basically did an alternative analysis on how to improve the stormwater system from the lowlands, and then it looked all the way across Flash Road to the golf course in Bear Pond. They did a lot of survey investigation, ecological investigation, endangered species habitat, things of that nature. They created, a whole matrix of recommendations. And one of the findings of that study was that the ditch system from Ward Road all the way to Bear Pond flows in that direction towards Bear Pond. However, along the way, there's a multitude of culverts and underground pipes, like on the golf course. And they actually act as choke points and slow down the flow of stormwater as it heads towards Bear Pond. So one of their recommendations was to improve the size and or eliminate the underground pipes where possible to, keep the flow of water moving in a efficient manner.
Could you give us the name of the firm that did the study again, please?
Dubois, Dubois, and King, King.
Thank
Tony,
you.
could you put that report on the town website?
I believe it is, and I can send it to your committee as well.
Okay, great. Along the lines of Nancy's questioning, and Nancy, I'm sure you got more questions. I just want to ask one. Have you asked anybody who knows a lot about trees why those trees died? Willow trees are not the longest lived trees, that's for sure. But on the other hand, as Nancy said, they love a high water table. And I'm surprised that you're losing them. What were you told is the explanation for that?
It was more a statement of observation. I never really got an explanation. I mean,
I know a little bit about it.
All right,
There was
go
this
ahead.
furor that happened, and people were going around saying, who chopped those trees down? What's all this about? And people got really upset. So I talked to Zach, and I also talked to the town manager at the time. And it was, those trees were just old. They had
They're
just,
old.
yeah,
They were
they're
old.
all
Yeah, well,
cracked
as I
up and
said, right.
pieces are missing and they're falling over. And so I think that they had that was their life expectancy, and that was the
Okay.
answer. They
Okay.
were removed for a good reason.
Okay, good, fine. Other questions? I just want to get everyone home in time for this State of the Union tonight.
Well, we're
It's-
into it already.
I'm sure we are. Tony, thank you so much for joining us tonight and bringing us up to date on this and giving us more explanation. What I'd like to suggest, folks, is that for next week, we ask the applicants for the open space group for Bailey's Hill and Lodge Park to be prepared to talk about their applications. And I'd also like to see if we can squeeze in the Nahant Historical Society. For the following, and boy, by the way, everyone, I just want to share that's Valentine's Day, and I'm just so touched that we're going to be together. I really wish we could have cupcakes
And chocolate.
all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I'm really touched. Then the following week, which is the 21st, we can finish up with the rights of way and the town clerk records. And then we can actually, I think we'll probably have time in that meeting to really begin to sort of suss out where we are on things. Tony, it will be helpful for us to just understand any follow-up on the Flash Road multi-use courts and the cost implications of what we discussed tonight. And
Yeah, I'll definitely try to. I was hoping to have that for you tonight. We're a little short-staffed in the town hall because everyone seems to be getting sick over the last couple weeks here. So it's just been a little hectic, but I was hoping to have it for you tonight.
okay. Well, we've got, a bit of time, but I'm really trying to get us finished with our deliberations at the end of February. And so we can start drafting and getting on.
Positive note, the withdrawal of that $75,000 application certainly makes, your job of spreading the budget out a little bit easier.
It does. It does, most certainly. So,
I think the FinCom is really interested in getting this material as quickly as possible, I've heard.
yeah, no, I know.
They always are.
I know,
They
Nancy.
wouldn't be
That's
the
why,
FinCom if they weren't.
that's why, we'd like to sort of push this along. So
There's Julie shaking her head.
I
Yep.
get it. I get it.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here, Julie. You are a good friend and a good FinCom liaison. That's for sure.
Thank you. I enjoy your meetings.
Okay, good. Oh, if we only could have cupcakes. All right. So I think with that, I'm just trying to see if I've got anything more in the chats. Oh, there was a question that Julie raised about, can work that we're funding, regardless of the application, begin before the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1st? And the answer is, that's the beginning of the fiscal year. So,
So,
Oh, but that was probably in relation to the pickleball courts, and in which point they were saying they wanted to be able to use their money to do, so the donated funds could I think my interpretation was, could the donated funds be used prior to July 1st?
the answer is
Rather than
yes,
the
but they,
Oh, sure. That's
answer
not
is-
our money,
Mhm.
that is, however, would be done by the town. So
by the
it's,
town, yeah.
Yeah, and even as long as the vote goes through, the town, could be in a position to basically start spending money. I mean, honestly, the town meeting is so much later in the spring now that by the time you get through permitting and contracting and you get your first invoice, you're likely after July 1st anyways.
right.
But as long as the town has approval, then, financially, we could move faster on spending money and just do some creative budgeting from fiscal year to fiscal year. But, the other element of the pickleball request was really, could they start spending money on painting the lines before town meeting was the original question.
Right.
And
Right.
the board and myself, have answered that question a couple times now. And because the funding that you all approved for those courts that was voted on by a previous town meeting was for tennis and basketball, we've always said, until town meeting comes back and says, use money for pickleball as well, we didn't feel comfortable doing that until town meeting gave us the okay. So we would likely not do that until town meeting gave the okay.
So they continue to play with tape. Okay.
And so when
All
is
right.
the town meeting this year?
May 20.
May 20?
Mhm.
Yep.
May 20th?
Okay.
All right. Thank you all. Is there any new business that should be considered at this time? I'll
Nope.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So entertained. Oh,
Second,
so moved, sorry. You're entertained.
second,
Ellen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Nancy?
yep.
Paul?
I abstain. Oh, no, I'll say aye.
Stop it. And I think we lost Jim Dolan. So,
We
Nope,
did,
I'm
no,
still with
Jimmy's
you.
here.
I'm here.
oh,
I'm still
Jimmy's
with you.
here. Oh my
Paying
gosh.
attention, here I am, and I'll vote aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. All right, very
And
good.
Gene Canty is muted.
Okay, but
but
he's
You get a
he's
chance
not,
to vote, Gene, if you unmute yourself.
well,
He's a guest.
he's not a, he's a guest.
Oh,
Oh.
that's right, of
Yeah,
course.
that's right. That's right. All right, folks. Well, thank you all. We meet again next Tuesday, and we'll expect to be hearing from the open space on Lodge Park and on Bailey's Hill and the
Perfect.
Nahant Historical Society. So,
Perfect.
all
Okay,
right.
thank you, Lynn.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye-bye,
everybody.
Night,
everyone.
everybody.
Be safe.
Night.
Oh, I'm
Thank you,
here.
Tony. Okay. All right, Jean. Good to,
Okay,
good to
Jean.
see you on the screen. Bye-bye now.
Night.